Igama lami ngu-Elihle Dudula. Ndineminyaka 21 years. Ndihlala eSamora, Machel. Journey started 2013 and it's when my first child got sick. By then he was 2 months old and the doctors, they ran some tests on him and that's when they find out that the baby is HIV positive. I was just thinking that I'm HIV positive as well because there was no way ukuba umntana avele abe positive nje from nowhere. I was thinking maybe I'm the one oyenzile yonke klento emntaneni wami. I just told them, Mama, umntana u-HIV, nam the HIV. And they said they can only give him something that is like a wheelchair to support his back. And so he can't walk and he can't sit and he's blind and he's brain damaged and he's having a PEG.
Powerful indeed. A big thank you to Moja Love as well as Baitaupi Media for providing us with that insert. And on that note, we want to say hello, Sanbonani. Good evening, South Africa. Welcome to Expressions. This is definitely the place for you to air your views. I'm your host, Jacqueline Mapala.
I'm your host, Umgolisi Wagomasango. Sizagin Ebkoma from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. We talk about HIV/AIDS. Now, the theme for this year's World AIDS Day is Know Your Status. And our poll question this evening, are young people winning the battle against HIV/AIDS?
That's a very important question because the 1st of December marks the 30th anniversary of World AIDS Day. Even though significant progress has been made in tackling HIV/AIDS pandemic, more still needs to be done. According to the UN AIDS report, only 3 in 4 people living with HIV know their status. This year, more and more people are encouraged to know their status by testing for HIV.
Well, the big question is just how effective are these campaigns that aim to raise awareness about HIV/AIDS, and what is the significance of Amalanga Fanane World AIDS Day? Now, as Expressions, we took to the streets. Do take a look at this.
Hi, my name is Nomfundo and I'll be your street journalist for today. And we're speaking around the topic of HIV and AIDS. We do know a lot about HIV and AIDS as the youth, but we are not taking responsibilities. I feel like there's still a huge number of people out there who are still having unprotected sex.
I do think people are very educated when it comes to like the AIDS epidemic in the country, but I don't think it's anything like any of you would judge any of your peers like based on that.
I think we're now seeing that, okay, you can actually live with the virus.
As the youth, mostly we talk about clothes, things that are happening. So I don't think it's easier to say to a friend, look, I have HIV. I feel like people are not treating HIV and AIDS as a killer now because they know that you just pop one pill and you're gonna be okay. It's not like back in the days where when it's the last stages, you could tell, be like, oh, we are Shona, and you be like, yo, I'm gonna want to buy. So I think now people are just like, nah, they're more scared of listeriosis than HIV because
we pretty much quite selfish. Like it's about, if I don't have it, why should I know about it?
I feel like the media in the past did a better job than they're doing now. As you're saying, like with intersections, like we had like shows like Soul City and Soul Body that touched on various issues such as like drugs and like AIDS especially.
I personally wouldn't mind having a partner who's HIV because it's not like it's the end of the world. It's not like they're gonna die tomorrow. I might die first and I'm negative.
I feel like a cure is very important because there are a lot of people that got HIV, you know, like, and it wasn't their intention to get it. It was a circumstance they were in. They were born with it. They were raped.
If there was a cure corner, I think mhlaba ngamosheka because inganza manje nje azimoshekile abayisabi ingculaza.
some very interesting comments there from young people on the streets. But to help me unpack this issue that we're discussing in studio, I'm joined by Leonora Mate, who is from the TAC, and she is a campaign officer there. And I'm also joined by Kerry Mangold, who is the technical lead HIV prevention from SANAC. Ladies, welcome to Expressions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And of course, my co-host Mkolisi is manning our social media and bringing some of your perspectives and insight on this topic that we're having in studio about HIV/AIDS. But ladies, we're going to get straight into it. Some of the comments that came from young people were kind of scary. And I think, let me start with you, Kerry. I mean, are we winning the battle against HIV/AIDS, especially when we saw in the insert where a young person only discovered that she was HIV positive when she gave birth to a child?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I think we're making a lot of progress as a country. We're reducing new infections. We've reduced new infections by about 40% in the last 5 years. Having said that, there's still, 230,000 new infections annually, and that's something that really needs to be addressed quite seriously if we're going to see the end of AIDS in our generation.
Yeah. And Leonora, I mean, again, I'm dumbfounded by some of the comments. I mean, on the one hand, it's saying that the stigma has come down because you heard a young person saying that she doesn't have a problem with dating someone who's HIV positive. Somebody said, no, actually, we're not taking it seriously. I mean, what is happening on the ground? Are young people taking this seriously? Are the campaigns effective?
So young people are nowadays saying they're more scared of being pregnant than HIV. However, I think we still need to talk more about what happens after HIV, because it's not a 5-minute thing. It's something that you have to live with for the rest of your life and take medication. So it's what we have to talk about. But we've got campaigns like the World AIDS Day thing that says, know your status. We've got a stock out in the country of ARVs. So even if we say young people must know their status, and then what after knowing their status? So there's a lot that we still need to do in terms of trying to get rid of the infections. In 2016, there were statistics that were saying every week 2,500 young people are getting infected with HIV and AIDS from the ages of 14 to 24 years. And we've got campaigns, however, they're not reaching out to young people, so more work needs to be done.
And indeed, and I think I want to sort of just highlight the statistics that are out there. I mean, and they're a little bit confusing because the UN AIDS has a different statistics when it comes to the particular age group that we're talking about between 15 and 24. But then we also know that the Human Science Research Council says that young men, apparently young men between 14 and 24 are actually getting the highest rates of infection. What is happening? What is this trend actually telling us? Because before it was young girls.
So the HSRC results have showed that young girls are getting infected more than their male counterparts. We don't want any confusing numbers going out to the public. And South Africa has a national strategic plan for HIV, STIs and TB. And those are the numbers. That is the one plan that governs the country's response to HIV, and those are the numbers which guide South Africa's response, government response, civil society, and the private sector. We know that young men can't be left behind, and I think we're realizing that we're coming to this a little bit late, but we are bringing them on board, and we do need to ensure that we address every stage of the transmission cycle. HIV has passed from one person to another, and we need to ensure that we address every different population that is part of that transmission cycle.
You know, what do you think is the gap? What's the missing link? I mean, why are young people still engaging in risky behavior when it comes to HIV/AIDS?
There's not much support and education to young people. We do have campaigns. We've got She Conquers, She Decides, and all the she's, but the campaigns are only there in paper. When it comes to implementation, we never really reach the young people that need those campaigns. So instead of us having campaigns on paper, we need to implement on the ground and reach out to the young people.
And how do we change the mindsets? Because, I mean, on the one hand, yes, you know, the information is out there. But, I mean, again, sex is such a personal issue, right? It's sort of coming into the space and the frame of our relationships that is a little bit too personal and intimate. But how do we change mindsets nonetheless?
I mean, I think for me what we need to appreciate is that we need to ensure that there are tools available for every person from every circumstance in any situation to protect themselves from HIV. We have the tools available like Nora says, we need to ensure that our progressive policies are put into action, that communities guide our response, and that we don't just use a blanket approach to try and tackle HIV amongst young women.
And look, and I think it's something that we need to discuss. 365 days of the year where we're saying test, know your status as a young person. We'll be back right after this. You're watching Expressions.
It's Expressions on Facebook as well as Twitter and Instagram's corner. Yonkindawo. Welcome back. You are still watching Expressions, your hashtag #1 youth current affairs show. We're talking about HIV/AIDS. We ask, are young people winning the battle against HIV/AIDS? I'm now joined by Nontombi Wagwalikwane, who's a young person who was born with HIV/AIDS. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Hi, Go. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Awesome.
Nontombi, you said something that really got me during the break. You said to me, you've been so happy your entire life. HIV/AIDS really isn't an issue for you. Take us through how it came about.
Oh, okay. So what happened was my mother and I were going back and forth, clinics, hospitals. It was back in 2004. So I was still young and I was still worried. Why am I seeing all these doctors, all these nurses? What's happening? So in between the lines, I managed to catch that, okay, something is happening. I could be having HIV, but I wasn't really sure what was happening. So I was like, okay, let me just sit and observe and see what's happening. So the other day, the doctor asked my mother, so when are you going to tell her that she's living with HIV? So I was like, okay, so I guess when you go home, it's going to be that talk. And then she called me to say, my child, I want us to talk about something. And before she could even say anything, I was like, okay, wait, let me guess. You're going to tell me that I'm living with HIV and I'll be on treatment for the rest of my life and I need to live a healthy life. And she cried. But I did all of that because I didn't want to put all the blame on her. She didn't deserve it. She was a single parent, and all I asked from her was that, can you just support each other? Just promise me that in this journey we will always, always be together. So that's how I found out till today.
Wow. What do you tell umuntu omusha ohlezi ekhaya right now, obukele Expressions or phila nge-HIV/AIDS? What do you tell them?
I can say that there's help. You have a choice. As a young person, you don't need to choose death over something that you can conquer. There's medication, and I always tell young people that one thing that kills us, it's not the HIV, it's not the medication, but it's the opinions that we listen to out there, the stigma, the discrimination that we put all the attention to. It kills us because we entertain what people say about us and we don't focus on what you want to do and how you want to feel and what you want to be as a young person. There's life after HIV, and I'm sure that message could be boring, but it means a lot. There is life after HIV only if you choose happiness. People can use your status as a battlefield weapon, but I think it's okay to embrace it. But let that HIV know that you are the CEO, so you have to do the dictatorship.
Indeed. Let's just have a look at what some of our people on social media are saying. Nontombi. Well, Kenchil says, no, it's not that they don't know, it's ignorance. I mean, relationships are now about money. Our women don't really fear HIV, they fear pregnancies. And of course, that's something I think we heard also coming in from our panelists. Kerry, this is a question I'd like to pose to you. I mean, it's one thing for us to ask whether we're having the right conversations about HIV/AIDS, because we have these conversations year in, year out. But are we really having these conversations at the right places? Because young people are coming out to say there's not enough awareness in rural areas.
So I think what we're recognizing now is that HIV is not something that can be dealt with at an individual level. If you don't engage families, if you don't engage communities, if you don't engage churches and community leaders and traditional leaders, and every sector of society really, we are never going to overcome teen pregnancies, gender-based violence, economic empowerment for HIV. And so I think we need to go into new spaces. We need to change our approach to really have a multi-sectoral response to HIV and not just deal with it as a health issue. You know, not just deal with individual girls who are vulnerable to HIV or teen pregnancy, but really address the bigger issue here.
Indeed, so it's a combined effort. Nontombi ake sikhulume nawe ngawe uyaxhaswa umphakathi. Do they know about your HIV status? I'm sure they do because you're in expressions now. But how is the community receiving you as a person living with HIV/AIDS?
I get a lot of support from my community. I have my mentor, Leonora, and I have a family that supports me. Like, above everything, I think family does the best work. We need support from our families. Yes.
Indeed. Now, also, let's just continue on Facebook. Now, Emmanuel says no because many young people are scared to get tested. Zakonda says it's a bit sorry because most of them found some serious situations not by sex, so I believe that is a chronic disease which can be treated and controlled, but we should not take advantage of them. We should love them and support them. Nachi says no, some others are having unprotected sex and that's why HIV/AIDS expands. And of course, you know, echoing the sentiments that it's all about Tina Bantabasha, Sizvigela, Manja Bantabasha getting into December, you know, it's known, you know, irresponsible sexual behavior really happens with December. What advice would you give to those young people?
It's so hard to talk safe sex and to go to contraceptives because with the current stock out that we have, it's giving us a challenge on how we empower the youth, because we could say you can opt for contraceptives, but then if you go to a health facility, there's nothing that you get. Maybe there's no injectables, and then they don't even give you a choice. They just switch you straight to pills. Some people are not really comfortable with pills. And then we have condoms. Not everyone is comfortable collecting a pack of condoms because of the stigma and the discrimination from the nurses and everyone, because once you start grabbing a pack, they'll ask that also, now you're being sexually active, and then that's when the youth opts for unprotected sex.
So protect yourself as well. Mundumusha, of course, we also like to check in on what you think, Lapekaya. That's why we encourage you to send in those voice notes. This is what you had to say on WhatsApp. Please roll this week's expression.
Hello Expressions, my name is Bongiwe. I totally believe that we as young people are actually winning the battle against HIV and AIDS. We are being provided with information and resources regarding the matter. We find condoms at schools, hospitals, clinics that emphasizes safe sex. Also, we are being encouraged to wear protective equipment when helping somebody that's bleeding.
Signed, sealed, and delivered. Those are words coming in from one of our viewers saying that it's very important for you to protect yourself. Now, this all-important conversation continues, Masbuya. Remember to phone a friend, to tell a friend that the hottest current affairs show is now showing. Back after this.
Welcome back. You're watching Expressions here on SABC 1, South Africa's biggest current affairs show. And today we are talking about a big issue. We're talking about HIV/AIDS. And the poll question that we're asking you this evening is, are young people winning the battle against HIV/AIDS? And of course, I'm still with my guests. And obviously, we have to wrap this conversation up. But I think a lot of really important and I think sobering comments came across from Kolisi and his side. But again, I think as we wrap this up, it's very important that as Expressions, we're responsible in terms of the message we get across, and that is the message that young people need to get tested. And I think as just as a wrap up, is the problem not that there's a lot of information about prevention, but maybe not enough about, you know, positive living and being able to live healthy and a successful life, even if you are HIV positive? I mean, again, what is the gap and how do we bridge that? Let me take it to you, Karen.
I mean, I think whether a young person is HIV negative or HIV positive, the first step that they need to take is to get tested. I think that's I know it can be a scary step where looking into self-testing for HIV and different modalities so people can test in a way that suits them. But I think it really is important that if they are HIV positive, that they link with support groups, that they find mentors and other young people living with HIV and get the support that they need. And if they are HIV negative, they need to be adequately linked to services to remain negative and to receive the support that they need to do that. But I think the most important thing is to check Impilo know your status as the first step.
Yeah, because it's scary. Again, only 3 in 4 people living with HIV know their status. And I think for you, Leonora, for young people who are watching the show right now, who feel like, you know what, mina angisabi lento, it's not a big deal, you know, like they were saying there on social media, that young girls and young boys are looking for the fast life, and they're looking to find the rich guys. What do you want to say to young people out there, and just the importance about safeguarding their future?
So I'm scared because young people think living with HIV is normal. You can get ARVs. There are no ARVs in the country. So that's the bad news. However, you can live
Wait, there's no ARV in the country?
Like we've got a major stockouts of ARVs in the country, sure. And some people can't even afford to buy for themselves. And I hope the government will work on that soon. Unfortunately, as the treatment action campaign, it can't be business as usual. So we'll still fight for ARVs to be available. Also, we need to make sure that all the campaigns for young people are peer-led, because if they're run by older people, then the message won't get through to young people, which is a problem. So if it's peer-led campaigns, then it's easier for young people to interact with each other. That then helps.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely reiterating what our Deputy President David Mabuza was saying when he visited Soweto, to say young people have to be at the forefront of this. And I guess you're saying peer-to-peer impact will have the greatest impact, I think, in the lives of young people. Ladies, thank you so very much for just the insightful conversation we had today. And I think more than anything else, I think young people will take this seriously. Get tested, know your status, right, Nko?
Yeah, that's this year's theme indeed, which I can. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Again, Muntomusha, just before we get the poll results out, let's just quickly find out this is your video diary.
Hi Expressions, my name is Brian Mtombeni, and I would like you guys to talk about car accidents. Since we are in the festive season, please advise people to stop drinking and driving, and to stop walking and drinking, and to stop cycling and drinking. Thank you.
It's the festive season.
It is
We're looking forward to
16 December, we know how people get rowdy. Hey, guys, there's still 2019 to look forward to. So I think that's a very important conversation to have, right?
Absolutely. And Gelapikaya, we did ask you today, are we really winning the fight against HIV/AIDS as young people? And just about 50% of you think yes, and 50% of you think no. So we are wholly divided on this matter as young people. And of course, as Expressions, we can only start the conversation. But it's important to safeguard our future as young people.
Yeah.
We're done. And of course, Muntomusha, we play out with Black Boy. From all of us here at Expressions, we wish you a spectacular evening going forward.
Adios.
Don't be foolish, let's be real. Hey, ratchet moves don't make the deal. Strap up, toss the rap and act up. Hit a row and you might just end up with AIDS. HIV is real. AIDS is fatal. Don't be foolish, let's be real. HIV, AIDS, been killing all my people in the streets. Need ARVs, condomize, never hit it wrong. You might end up missing and you getting gone. No glove equals no love equals no drug. That's a healthy life. Exercise and living, eating right. Mistakes are made, but then they ruin lives. Please be careful when you sipping sky, cause they cloud your judgment on your wrongs and rights. Don't die inside for a killer night, cause the piper piping every single night. Pipe it up, pipe it up, pipe it up. Don't be a victim to this deeper mind. Don't be foolish, let's be real. Hey, ratchet moves don't make the deal. Strap up, toss the rap and act up. Hit a row and you might just end up with AIDS. HIV is real.